Hello everyone, this is Jotto, and welcome to my top 10 favorite cards. Now, this is a list I've been thinking about doing for a while, and it's a bit of an interesting topic because first things first I noticed is most of the cards on this list are creatures, which is not that shocking, probably because a lot of the cards that I look at as being my favorite are cards I've tried to throw into decks over and over and over again, and most cards that you can build around a bit are creatures just by nature. So as a result, most of the cards here are creatures. Now, what does it take to get on this list? Power level is pretty much out the window, although to be fair, most of these cards are at least reasonably powerful cards, simply because a lot of these are cards I've had a lot of fun playing with, and if a card is absolutely awful, it better do something spectacular, otherwise I won't have played with it much, basically. That's how that comes down to it. Now, I don't think there are any trials picks for this. I don't think so. I have played with a lot of these cards in trials, and they're lots of fun in trials, but I think most of these are just constructed picks. But anyway, before we go on to the actual list, I've got 4 honorable mentions. Now, these are cards that are either didn't quite make the cut, or I like, but I don't know, they don't really resonate with me as much. So, Deathbound Incarnate. This is a card which I really like the design on. I think it's one of the coolest ways of making a mill creature in the game. I just haven't played with it much. I really like the design, I just haven't played with it much, so I don't really have a bond with this card at all. Next, we've got Ray of Righteousness, because it's a catch-all and I love playing with Ray of Righteousness. I don't know, it's just the ability to destroy anything that's a problem is actually kind of nice, but it's a bit simple and it's a removal spell, so it's not like it really fits on the list in my opinion. These two are ones that barely missed. Overwhelming Forces. The only reason that this card isn't on the list is because I haven't played with it recently. But Overwhelming Forces is spectacularly fun to play with. For anyone that hasn't played this deck, get Advanced Neva and 4 Nienna and a massive mana elves with all of the mana producing elves and everything like that, all 8 of them, and then you just go crazy with it, and your Overwhelming Forces put your entire deck into play and then just attack. That's how you play with Overwhelming Forces. It's so much fun, but it's not very viable, unfortunately, and even when you try and do it for fun, you play against a Dominion player and then they Cataclysm you, and it's just yeah. So yeah, it sucks a bit out of this card. So yeah, I haven't been able to play with this much, but if I was able to play with this card, it would definitely be on the list somewhere. Now, lastly, this may surprise a few people, Antriel. I do like trying to get Antriel to work. I do like the whole giant 6/6 flyer, gives all of your guys life bound and just beats people to death. I have enjoyed playing with this card a decent amount, but it's a little bit too vanilla to really end up on the list, which is ironic because there are some vanilla creatures on the list. But anyway, on to the actual list itself, starting with Contrafield Captain at number 10. Now, Contrafield Captain is a card which I really enjoy playing with, partly because of the speed boost more than anything else. It's just being able to tempo people out. This is a card I've played a lot with over time. I've played with it in blue, white, hazy blue tempo decks, mono order as well, played with it in elves for a bit. I've just played a decent amount of this. I played it in Soldiers as well. Soldiers, the deck I did really, really well with a couple of months ago. So, played with this card a lot. Why is it so low on the list? Because everyone else plays with it. That's basically why. It's just everyone else plays with the card as well, so it's kind of yeah, I like the design, but it doesn't feel very specific because most people play with this card if they get the opportunity anyway, because it's just so powerful. So, on to number 9. This is the Goblin Fireworker. This is my favorite design for an artifact or spell destruction card in the game. I love this guy. I don't know what it is about it, but it's just it's a 2/2 creature, and then it also has the artifact hate built into it. That's really cool. It's actually kind of the same reason I like Ray of Righteousness currently. It does its job normally. It does an okay job of dealing with big creatures, but then if they have a spell, you can blow up the spell. I really like those kinds of designs. So Fireworker is one of my favorite ones. Spellbreaker has something similar to this, but I prefer being able to just play a card and then sacrifice it immediately. Like, it's a bad detonate sometimes, but it's not always a detonate. Sometimes it's just a Goblin, which is really cool design in my opinion. And it's definitely my favorite out of the three original ways of dealing with this, which was like Unicorn, Gnome, and Fireworker. I've always liked Fireworker the best. The other two either felt overpowered or underpowered, depending on what version we're looking at. But Fireworker is just always solid, so I really like this guy, and I played a lot with him actually. Now, at number 8, we actually have, this is kind of a Trials pick, although I have tried playing this in Constructed, Storm Ferry. Storm Ferry is, I don't know, it's one of those simple designs. It's just like bounce on a creature, and I really like the Mana War type design from Magic, where that was a blue creature that bounced things. 2/2 body is just very basic, and it works with another card in this list we'll get to. But most of the play I've had with this is in Trials, and I don't know what it is about it, but I love the Storm Ferry tricks. I love the whole, like, if you get Storm Ferry at Grand Reunion, you can bounce it. Like, you can bounce it back to your hand, so you just basically drew a Tornado Outbreak. So that's really cool, and you can use it to tempo people out. You can use it with, say, you play Storm Ferry, next turn you go Landslide, you get the 2 damage in. It's just a really cool creature. Not too strong, but, I mean, if we saw some Fairy synergy in future sets, I could definitely see this seeing some constructed play, because it's not that bad. It's like barely off constructed playability. Like, it would only need to be a 3/2, I think, to be constructed playable right now, or just to get some Fairy tribal synergies. But anyway, so that's the Storm Ferry at number 8. Now, at number 7, mentioned it briefly, we've got the Grand Reunion. Oh, I've built a lot of decks for Grand Reunion. I don't know what it is about this thing, but it's just trying to make this work is one of the most satisfying things you can possibly do, especially when it does. And getting this in Trials is so much fun. I've played Trials runs with 2 Storm Fairies, and you get to bounce them back to your hand. It's a very skill-testing card, very skill-testing. Playing a Grand Reunion perfectly is very hard. And a lot of people are just like, oh, it's random. No, it's not. Because Divine Offering allows you to see what you're putting on the bottom of your deck along with Grand Reunion's effect. So you can actually count cards and know exactly when you're getting specific stuff. Particularly Storm Ferry, because then you get the bounce end of turn. But just in general, you know what you're going to get if you count your entire deck. And it's one of the cards that actually rewards you for counting cards on Divine Offering. That's something which is very difficult to do, but it's one of those things where it's like it rewards playing the game well. That's what I like about Grand Reunion. It feels random, but it's really not, and it's deck manipulation, and it has some text at the bottom which no one actually knows about. This win the game if you control each of the... I mean, I've never seen anyone win the game with that. It's just the first effect that's really cool, being able to put stuff into play, and it's also kind of a green card draw type thing. Which is nice. It's also a more mid-range control green card as opposed to the more aggressive types. So then at number 6, we have Clone's favorite card, Namir. Namir barely missed top 5. This is a card which, like, I associate Clone with this card a lot because he's played Knights, and he's played it in Angels, and he's played it in half the decks he's ever played, it feels like. But Namir is just very solid. It's one of the best designed, complicated cards. Like, it's an epic, it feels epic, 3/3, 3 speed. It has the weird cost distribution in the 2 mana, 3 levels to work with in Still Life. That's a nice touch. And it has 3 typings, well, more accurately 2, because human isn't a thing, but Knight and Priest, and it works with Knights and Priests in, like, their own fancy way. It's good on its own, it's good with synergies. I just really like this. Is one of the perfect designed order cards in my opinion. It's very cool. Another one of those cards which doesn't really ever feel bad to play with, and you can use it with Instill. This is something which I'm using in mono order as well recently. But it's just a very fun card to play with, and feels a bit more unique because you don't see Namir that much. But he's around. He's still a very good card, and has always been a bit underestimated. All right. Now we get into what I like to call the Jotto cards, which is the cards that I have gone out of my way to build decks with. I think there's only one card out of these which is, like, reasonably common, although not currently, but in the past it's been reasonably common. But these are all cards which I've either tried to build decks around and either failed spectacularly or succeeded. So, starting with Necromantic Cult. I have tried way too hard to get Necro Cult to work. It's one of those cards that, I don't know, I really like the whole grindy thing, where it's like you get your cult going, and then you remove counters, and you put more on him, and you just keep chaining through the stuff. Let's see, how many decks have I actually built specifically for cult? I've built about 6 different versions of Dominion Corruption Control just to get this guy to work. I put him in Corruption Wisdom. That was my original deck that I actually played, was Corruption Wisdom, and I got my cults, and I tried to make it work. I played him with Kayanu because you get to put a might counter on him, as I have disconnected. Anyway, that's, yeah, I'll get that back up. It's my internet going down for a bit. But anyway, so you get the extra might counter from Kayanu, so you get to remove that immediately. So I spent a little bit too long trying to get that to work. So yeah, Necro Cult is one of those weird cards that I've invested so much time into it, and it's always been very close. Never quite got it. It's very disheartening. You can also instill it. That's another combo you can do. You can use Instill Life on your Necro Cult, and you can use Instill Life on Mesmerizing Spirit. Those are the 2 really good ones out of Corruption. So, never quite got it working, unfortunately, but eventually I will get the Necro Cult working, mark my words. Number 4. Now this is a new addition to the list, which is Valosworn Incarnate. Ah yes, the one drop that everyone gave up on. So basically, when this guy came out, we all kind of knew it was powerful, but we just couldn't get it to work. And it was really difficult, and then I had my eureka moment. I was just like, mono order aggro, put 4 Valosworn in it, and go crazy with the levels. And it worked. It actually worked. It's the most successful deck I've played recently, and I don't know what it is about this guy, but he's a vanilla creature. He has no, like, extra effect. He's like a Tarmogoyf, basically. He's a vanilla creature, doesn't have any other effects, he just gains stats over time. And the amount of fun, like, circumstances that can come up with multiple Valosworns is hilarious. I've won games with 5 levels and 1 mana before, and that actually happens frequently. I've gone up to 4 or 5 levels with mono order that can't play anything at higher than 3. So yeah, just being able to beat someone to death with a 6/6 1-drop is just funny with Touch of Light. So yeah, it comes down to some really weird things. I think it's a bit too strong, but the point is it's a hilarious card to play with and actually supports an archetype that, I mean, I quite like the order aggro decks. Like, played a lot of soldiers and played a lot of mono order now. I've always kind of liked these dorky decks that have sort of these synergy type things between them, and Valosworn lets me play them. So very, very happy this card's around now. Ah yes, the top 3. This was interesting. The next 2, I had some serious issues actually deciding which one was where, but at number 3 I decided on Charged Aurite. Now, Charged Aurite is a card that I've played probably an unhealthy amount of. I basically tried getting Tempo Wisdom to work for about 6 months with Charged Aurite. The reason it fell down at number 3 is mostly because I cut it from the deck when it got nerfed and it came back, and it's like, yeah, it also just enables the rest of the stuff I like doing instead of actually, you know, accomplishing something I like doing. Like, the Runelit Incarnate didn't quite end up on the list, because that's not my favorite thing to do with Charged Aurite. That's just boring. That makes a big dork that just keeps attacking things. That and Runelit Incarnate's rulings just annoy me. So, yeah, that falls down on, that didn't quite make it, but a lot of the other stuff I love doing with Charged Aurite are make millions of shields against red decks and make millions of golems. Those are my 2 things I love doing with Charged Aurite. That and pumping Spectral Aurite in Trials. That's hilarious. Pumping Spectral Aurite up to like 10 attack and attacking with it is one of the most satisfying things you can possibly do. That and Dust Titan. The old Dust Titan in particular. The old Dust Titan, where you could pump like 10 mana into it, and it was a 10/10, and it lost like energy and stats whenever you used the shock ability. And you use Charged Aurite and Force Wielders, and you just make this colossal like 20/20, 30/30 attacking creature. Like, those were so much fun to play with. Card itself was not that powerful and was slightly mechanically broken in terms of Dust Titan. However, the Charged Aurite does allow you to do a lot of things. It's also one of those pieces of art that's really, really cool because you don't quite realize how small this thing is. Like, it is the size of a mouse, basically. It's a bit bigger than a mouse. It's like a squirrel. It is the size of a squirrel and is, yeah, it's a tiny creature with a lot of impact, and that's what I always liked about Charged Alright. So, on to number 2. Now, number 2 is the Phoenix. Phoenix is one of those creatures that always feels a bit too powerful sometimes, but it just gets balanced out by, like, the rest of the card pool. And it is a very, very powerful creature. It feels very strong to play with, and it plays defense, it plays offense, it fits on curves and mid-range red decks, which I love playing. Can't currently play because of Burning Rage, but that's not the point. Yeah, and Burning Rage ramps you into your Phoenixes, yes, but it's faster just to burn them to death with Dragonfire. But anyway, so Phoenix is one of those creatures that allows red to play a mid-rangey game, which they normally can't do because they're so aggressive focused, but you get to play your Advanced Zash and your Phoenixes, and you play this with blue-red decks, and I love blue-red decks as a concept. This was a player in Burning Rage, which I love playing as well. Never quite played it to success unlike some of my teammates did, but Burning Rage, the old Burning Rage, where it did 2 damage and you played Burning Rage, you played Vampirism and Phoenixes and Ramgaths, you just got all your life back. That was fun. So yeah, Phoenix has a lot of good memories for me as far as playing the game goes. Like, I've done really, really well with Advanced Zash mid-range decks in the past, and I'm kind of waiting for the metagame to slow down a bit so you can actually play those decks again. Because those are tons of fun to play. But currently, can't really play with the Phoenix. You just can't do it. It gets Tornado Outbreaked, and that's the end of it. It gets Tornado Outbreaked and Helmed. That's basically what Phoenix does. And currently, he's kind of overpowered by just Burning Rage and Burn spells. That's basically why Phoenix isn't seeing much play right now. Unfortunate, but yeah. And before we move on to number 1, this has my favorite piece of art in the entire game. I absolutely love the art on this. Also, as one of my favorite pieces of flavor text, look at Rebirthing. Gibber and Ronnie, random side point, the Gibber and Ronnie flavor texts are hilarious. There's so many of them. They're on Detonate, they're on Phoenix. Like, there's a lot, it's on Ancient Treant as well. There's a lot of Gibber and Ronnie flavor texts, and they're all hilarious, and Phoenix is no exception. One downside of this, its name, Massication. No one says that. The only reason it's annoying is for tournaments. Before the tournament system, where we had automatic deck lists, you had to write out Massication Phoenix for deck lists. That was the only annoying thing about this card. Now, number 1. Now, anyone that's been watching my streams or my videos for any length of time knows exactly what card is coming up here. It is the one, the only, the Foundry Engineers. Foundry Engineers leads to some of the most hilarious games of Spellweaver in existence, where you have your army of 50,000 golems attacking all at once. And I think almost every single Spellweaver player has gone into a game against the AI with the blue starter deck and just made millions of golems. I think everyone's done it at some point. It is one of the most satisfying things you can do in the world, is just attacking with thousands of golems and just dealing massive amounts of damage. It's just ridiculous. The other thing is, like, this has also been a major player in a lot of decks I've played as well. Tempo Wisdom being the main example here, but I played in some other decks as well. It's always been borderline. Like, it will win the game on its own, eventually, but it dies to every removal spell, so it's always been borderline playable. And in some decks, it actually is playable. And Charged Alright Foundry Engineers is one of the really, really fun combos where you play Charged Alright turn 1. If they don't have an answer, you get 3 energy, and then turn 3, you go Foundry Engineers, make 2 golems immediately. That is always one of the most fun things you can do with Foundry Engineers Charged Alright. And it just plays off the rest of the energy deck. Like, I love the energy synergies in general. A lot of the energy cards are, like, in my favorite cards. Like, Unstable Reactor is a card I do like playing with. It didn't quite make the list. Protector didn't quite make the list. But, like, most of the Tempo Wisdom deck, like the energy side, I really, really enjoy. And Foundry Engineers is just, like, the apex of it. Because making shields, that's boring. Blocking damage with Force Field, that's boring. Making legions of 2/2s is where it's at when it comes to this, and unlike Tombs of the Damned, you can actually interact with this one, so it's less annoying. So yeah, that, and they actually have speed, so you can attack things. So yeah, Foundry Engineers definitely takes the top spot for me in terms of my top 10 favorite cards. So anyway, Now, I was thinking of doing a top 10 least favorite cards, but we have a balance patch coming up, which means that some of the ones that would be on that list are going to get changed. So I held off on that one. But anyway, thank you all for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe. If you have any feedback or want to ask me any questions about the video, put it in the comment section below. But as now, it's been Jotto, signing off.